All right, good morning, welcome. Welcome to Kansas City, welcome to Spring CAEPCon 18. I'm Vince O'Neill, an Accreditation Director here at CAEP. I'm excited to welcome you here today. We have a great sessions planned for you and lots of things to get going. I'm going to start things off, introduce you to our president, Dr. Chris Cook.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Vince almost got my name wrong. So that's all right. Really pleased to see you here. I want to start out, as I start out all CAEP conferences, and thanking you for coming. I know it's a busy time of year all over in the programs where you're preparing teachers, so we appreciate you taking the time to come to CAEPCon. I also want to just call out and thank our volunteers. Many of you serve as volunteers. Some of you are super volunteers. It's a whole other category we were discussing this morning. Could we have the volunteers, people who volunteered for CAEP, stand so we can recognize you and give you some applause? Thank you for your work. Obviously, CAEP can't survive without volunteers who go into your programs and talk to you about that. I also do want to recognize a number of our staff, in particular Vince, Keisha, Zach, and Brad, who do a lot of work in preparation for this conference, but all of the CAEP staff. This is an all-hands-on-deck event, so if they could stand so you can recognize who our staff are. Thanks. Some of them are standing. They're all busy. I also want to recognize we do have several board members. Following this session, one of the sessions you can do is a breakout session. We thought it was very important to have board members attend, and you're going to be hearing from one of them shortly. Karen is going to be doing our keynote. We also have Kim Walters-Parker, Maria del Carmen Salazar, and Al Rabina, if they could just stand. Our current board members, two of them up front. Kim's way back over there. Kim hails from Kentucky, Maria's Colorado, and Al is a teacher in California. I see Blake West here. Recognize Blake, too, one of our critical partners, former board member as well. So I want to just take a moment here to introduce. You're going to hear from me again after Karen, and you're going to hear from Gary, and then Vince finally just on some logistics. Very pleased, about a year ago in June, Karen became our board chair. She's currently the dean of the University of Southern California, Rasier School, and she was also a dean at the University of Kansas. So she's done both public and private work. Also went to an accredited institution when she was doing her teacher preparation, which has served her very well and has had a personal hand-on with accreditation since. Her full bio is also in our app and in the materials, but I want to, no further ado, introduce Karen and thank her for coming. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome. Let me add my welcome to all of you. I'm delighted to join with others from CAEP to welcome you to CAEPCon. I'm also honored to serve as the chair of the CAEP Board of Directors. And I want to take just a few minutes to share with you some of my experiences and reflections on the role of accreditation and how that has played throughout my career as a teacher, administrator, faculty member, and dean of 2 schools of education. I too want to acknowledge my colleague board members who are here and to publicly thank them for their accomplishments to date and for their service to CAEP. I want to also thank President and CEO Chris Cook and his staff, and they are really the driving forces behind today's program and behind making CAEP's vision become a reality. So I'd like to acknowledge once again both the board members and the CAEP staff for their work today. And also, I'd like to acknowledge that coincidentally, today is National Pi Day. That is P-I Day. For those of you who are mathematically inclined, you know that March 14th, or its numerical representation of today, 314, contains the first 3 numerals of the infinite number that is pi, or 3.14159 and plus an infinite number of numbers. Pi is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. So I'm going to say Happy Pi Day, celebrate responsibly. And let me state up front that without the many teachers, counselors, and principals in my own K-12 public school education, I would not be standing here today as chair of the CAEP board or standing here talking about pie. I want to share two specific experiences I had as dean at the USC Rossier School of Education and how they relate to accreditation. One has to do with the 2009 launch of our synchronous and asynchronous online Master of Arts in Teaching program, and the other with the recent revision of our school's mission statement. But first, I can't really separate my thoughts on accreditation from my own story as an educator. Long before I was a teacher, I was a learner. And as a child, I learned early on that my teachers and my school were an essential source of support in my life. My father died when I was in elementary school, so besides my mother and my church, it was my 6th grade teacher, the principal of my elementary school, my 8th grade science teacher, my middle school counselor, and 2 high school English teachers who kept me moving forward. They not only prepared me to be successful in college, but they listened to my doubts and my dreams along the way. They were a huge reason I'm a college graduate, the first in my family to achieve that distinction. However, I didn't become a teacher at the undergraduate level because I had other plans. But 3 years after leaving college, I realized that I wanted to become a teacher, to give back what I had received. So after talking to several friends for advice, I chose a post-baccalaureate program at the University of Washington. At the time, I didn't know it was NCATE accredited, but its reputation for preparing high-quality new teachers and for their graduates getting jobs was certainly a well-established fact among the practitioners that I knew at that time. My K-12 career includes middle school teaching and administrative positions in 5 school districts in 3 states. So before you think I can't really seem to hold on to a job for long, I want you to know that I experienced many unforeseen circumstances that life seems to throw at all of us, like being riffed from my very first teaching position because the district lost 20% of its state funding and laid off all first-year teachers. Like moving across country to North Carolina because my husband decided to go to school at UNC Chapel Hill. I found a job within a month, but more to the point, my Washington State teaching credential was recognized because I had gone to an NCATE accredited program. It happened again when we moved to Indiana, again for my husband's career. Indiana also had a reciprocal agreement for teaching credentials recommended by an NCATE-recommended institution. While I've personally benefited as an educator from accreditation, I've also participated in all aspects of accreditation process, from being part of a writing team for the self-study to organizing data systems to document evidence for meeting standards. I've worked at 4 different universities in 4 states. 2 of those universities were public, 2 were private, and I have seen accreditation drive practice. I've also served on 2 professional standards boards in California and in Kansas, where I chaired that board. In Chicago, as a faculty member at Loyola University, I was on several visiting teams to high schools who were going through regional accreditation. At the University of Cincinnati, as an Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education, I oversaw the successful NCATE renewal accreditation process for our College of Education, including writing the accreditation document and the organization of the site visit. At the University of Kansas, as Dean in the 1990s, I oversaw the preparation of the NCATE renewal process. I also served as chair of the Kansas Professional Standards Board as we revised standards for the licensure of all educators and developed a statewide partnership of the teacher preparation programs, the Kansas Board of Education, and NCATE. At that time, NCATE accreditation was required for all public universities. And then, after coming to USC in 2000, I eventually oversaw the initial accreditation, NCATE accreditation visit in the last wave of NCATE visits before CAEP was formed. I also served for 5 years on the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing as the representative for the private universities in California. And part of that was developing the standards for teachers for NCLB. So my career as an educator from the beginning has been impacted by professional standards for teachers, for schools, and for educational programs to prepare educators. It might surprise you to learn that when I came to USC in 2000, we hadn't had national accreditation for 25 years. We had, of course, met state requirements, but the launch of our online Master of Arts in Teaching program meant that we then had a national footprint in ways we had not had it before. We believed it was time to undergo a national accreditation review, and we underwent this process simultaneously with our state accreditation review. I sent a team of 7 USC Rossier faculty and staff members to an accreditation conference much like this in 2012. I'm not sure how involved my counterparts are at other schools, but as a dean at the USC Rossier, I had every intention of being very hands-on as possible. I met frequently with my team, and we set out our schedule for data collection and drafting our report. I remember asking my staff one question over and over. How do you know? How do we know? How do we know how well our graduates are doing? How do we know what our impact is on, as our graduates get out into the field? For all of us, I think the accreditation was a renewing process. We did not see this as a set of hoops to jump through, but as an opportunity to collect data, to look at it rigorously, and to migrate our findings into program improvement. As we were undergoing this process, we were collecting data from various sources, and one of the favorite methods of our team was to go out into the field. Now, by this time, that meant going to we have graduates and students in over 50 states. So we had teachers that we could visit who had graduated from our MAT program. We set out to visit cities with large concentrations of our students and new graduates. And at the time, that was New York, Seattle, Atlanta, Honolulu, and obviously Southern California. We observed that our graduates were using many of the strategies that they had learned in our program and in a way that engaged their own students. Our graduates seemed to be accountable to the students while also being accountable to good practices. In our program, we wanted our teacher candidates to generate knowledge from practice, from the practice during student teaching, so they would learn how to use that knowledge to describe evidence of learning, analyze their teaching, and propose alternatives to their practice. By going out into the field, we wanted to find some answers. How well were they prepared to take on instructional responsibilities from day one? How well did they work with students from diverse cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds? How well did they work with English language learners, students with disabilities, and struggling readers? How did they know how to monitor understanding by listening to responses that required reasoning, problem solving, and critical thinking? Were they assessing student learning? How well were they integrating instructional technology? Were they using a wide range of classroom management techniques and discipline strategies? Of course, we were gratified when the answers reinforced that indeed we had done a good job, but we also listened to what we needed to improve. And there was, yes, much that we could improve. We emerged with a strong result from our accreditation, but more importantly, we had improved from where we had started. And the K-12 students that had seemed to have benefited from our student teachers who became teachers. In fact, we have come to develop rigorous and ongoing methods of self-assessment regardless of what stage we were in an accreditation cycle. So while I often talk about our online MAT program in terms of scalability and reach, and that the use of technology in synchronous classrooms is important, It is also a story of how our initial success was dependent on national accreditation, and simultaneously, how the rigors of remaining accountable have pushed us to improve all of our programs, both online and on ground, in teacher ed and in other fields. As a second example, I want to share what I want to share has to do with our mission. Those of you who know USC Rossier know about our longtime commitment to urban education. In fact, one of the reasons we wanted to scale up on our online MAT was because we were not keeping up with the demand for quality teachers, even in Los Angeles. With our numbers now, almost 80% of our MAT graduates are still working in high-need schools 5 years after leaving. Not yet what we have as our goal outcome for our graduates, but definitely we are improving every year. We sit in the heart of the second largest school district in the country. While ours is one of the largest private universities in the world, we do operate with a very public mission to graduate educators for our public schools. By preparing teachers and educational leaders, we think we're fulfilling this public mission. And to a great extent, we are rising to this challenge. We have made this kind of impact by focusing our efforts on a mission we established in the early 2000s. That mission was to improve learning in urban education locally, nationally, and globally. We also seek to improve learning at USC Rossier within our own curriculum, inside our own classrooms, and with our own faculty and administrators. That's where this circles back to accreditation again. I embrace it as an opportunity for making an impact on student learning. I believe the process of assessment always leads to productive change. I had a similar mindset 2 years ago when USC's provost office began its once-a-decade academic program review of all of our doctoral and master's programs. What emerged from this process was the realization that our mission was really not very clear to our students. A panel of independent reviewers asked us what we meant by urban ed. They had identified student frustration with a perceived disconnect between our mission and their coursework. These findings emerged against the backdrop of university efforts to improve equity, diversity, opportunity, and access. We appointed a diversity task force. We conducted a racial climate survey. We listened. Then we set off on a 10-month process to redefine urban education, including a convening of a full-day retreat for more than 100 of our stakeholders. Despite all this work, we did not come up with a new definition of urban education. Rather, thanks to all this work, we recognized we needed to set our sights on a far more important goal. We determined that we needed to have a new mission statement. The USC's Rossier's new mission statement is to prepare leaders to achieve educational equity through practice, research, and policy. We work to improve learning opportunities and outcomes in urban settings and to address disparities that affect historically marginalized groups. Equity is front and center in this new mission in a way that it wasn't the case with our prior mission. When I say we are mission-driven as a school, I'm not only acknowledging the importance of a focus goal, but I'm also identifying the collective sense of purpose that has allowed us to disagree, to evolve, and to transform. We continue to improve learning locally, nationally, and globally, but our mission is to advance educational equity. Just as I can't separate my own career trajectory from the influence of accreditation, I can't separate the demands, successes, and challenges of running a school of education from the benefits of accreditation. I look forward to meeting all of you at some of the sessions and some of the CAEPCon sessions today. I thank you for attending and for taking action to become or continue to be CAEP accredited. As Amelia Earhart said, the most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Thank you and have a great conference.
Thank you, Karen. Just as USC went through listening and reflection, as often is part of what the accreditation process is, nothing lifts my heart more to hear someone who has gone through accreditation talk about it helped us to focus on what we needed to do anyway in improving. It even in some cases leverages resources for the program and brings, of course, national recognition. CAEP remains the only national accreditor recognized by the Council for Higher Ed Accreditation. We just completed our interim review of that accreditation status. We also are constantly reflecting and continuously improving. You're seeing that even with this conference. Many of you in the evaluations, and the evaluations you'll complete, we do read those, we listen to those. You wanted beginning advanced threads. We now have those in this conference. You'll see that. And many of the sessions that you'll attend are in direct response to things that you wanted. Similarly, our work is reflecting and responding to what you're wanting. We now have over 100 programs that have been through CAEP accreditation. We also now have 34 state agreements, a huge number of state agreements. Remember, our purpose of state agreements are to leverage the relationship between providers in a state and the state responsible for licensing. That can be your state Department of Education or your state licensure boards. You know I come from that perspective. We use those agreements to better articulate the standards and the approaches that will be taken and to simplify the process. I always will hold hope that that process will help in teachers being able to move from state to state and being accepted as having come from an accredited institution and being prepared to teach in those states, knowing how pervasive mobility is among our populations in the United States and the diverse states we serve. We also were listening with our initial handbook. About a week ago, we released our initial handbook for public comment. You wanted public comment period. We're giving you one 30 days. The big change in this handbook is that the merge from pathways to a single uniform process with accreditation. Also something that was voted on both by the Accreditation Council and the board unanimously to simplify and make this process more efficient, understandable. So please take time to look at that and give us your comments. We are listening. We're seeking comment through March, by the way. We also released last fall our advanced handbook. You saw the advanced handbook. Part of what we heard from the field in that was limiting our scope. The scope very much reflects what we heard, and you see that with the emergence of advanced programs. We also had heard a lot and that folks wanted guidance on Standard 3.2. We have now publication out that was released last year on 3.2 and measures of academic proficiency, including a list of assessments and guidelines for equivalency studies, knowing that multiple sources of data may be used. We also had heard from you that you wanted examples and exemplars around Standard 4. We analyzed the first cases that went through CAEP accreditation and have a document available for you to look at what folks did in order to demonstrate evidence that that standard is met. You'll see also in the handbook how we are approaching diversity. Diversity is a thread and technology throughout CAEP accreditation, so please look and comment on how that approach is being done. We've put together a key leadership team. I want to introduce here to talk to you a little bit about approaches to accreditation, Dr. Gary Railsback. I asked Gary what are 3 things he would like me to say about him, and he said, well, one, that he has got his foot both in providers and CAEP accreditation. So Gary has been a dean. He's been a dean twice, and recently I stole him from Azusa Pacific, but he also keeps a foot in that world in doing some weekend courses for the next year with some dissertation students because he wanted to make sure that they were still guided through the process. Gary has a sense of humor, which I appreciate very much. He also likes to tell stories. He's very good at it. He'll keep you on the edge of your seat when he does it. Gary has been a reviewer and a team lead in 15 states. He's done this a long time, so he has a lot of experience coming from this perspective, both having been a dean and a practitioner in accreditation. So with no further ado, I'll introduce Dr. Gary Railsback. Gary.
So the first question I want to ask is, how many of you are at your first CAEPCon? Raise your hand. That is absolutely great. One of the things that I want to encourage you as a newcomer is don't be afraid to ask questions. So since Chris already told you I'm a storyteller, I want to tell you a story about my first CAEPCon. I was a newly appointed dean, and I brought the dean I reported to and about 5 of my faculty to Washington, D.C. We saw this brochure that talked about spas, and I didn't really know what a spa was. I'd worked in Kansas, I'd worked in Oregon, and we didn't really talk about spas. So I told my faculty, well, the spas are all meeting on Saturday, so we'll fly home on Sunday. So we got to Washington, D.C., and very quickly realized that being from California, we didn't have to use spas. So I use that as an example just to explain, as you're coming new into this accreditation world or new into CAEP, there's probably going to be a lot of words or thoughts or concepts that you're going to be introduced to, and you're not going to know what they are. So don't be afraid to ask somebody. None of us were born with this knowledge. We learn it by participating, asking questions. Chris mentioned that I've been a dean and also a department chair, and one of my roles at George Fox, in fact, there's a few George Fox people here. Why don't you raise your hand if you're from George Fox? Anybody here this morning? I guess they slept in. Oh, there's one back there, Steve. Okay. So in 2008 or 2007, George Fox University in Oregon decided to go for initial NCATE accreditation. And I became department chair August 15th, and the team was there in November. And so it was a mad scramble at the last minute to pull a lot of things together. And then the day that our team left, I received a phone call from Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego that they wanted me to come down and interview to be dean. And one of the things they wanted to do was move toward NCATE accreditation. So I have a lot of experience in trying to get a new institution ready for accreditation when they're not doing the same things across their campuses or across their programs. And that was one of the reasons that I decided I better learn how to be a site visitor. And so I went to my first training in the summer of 11. We had our NCATE visit in 12 at Point Loma, and I've never looked back. And one of the things I've learned is, so Kim Walters Parker is back here somewhere. Kim, raise your hand. Kim was working for the Kentucky Standards Board in 2011, I think? It was my very first out-of-state visit. I thought I knew a lot about education. I grew up in a family. Mom and dad were teachers. And I walked into that setting, and they kept using this word intern. Well, I knew what an intern teacher was in California, but I quickly found out that Kentucky, even though they have an accent, they're using the same word, but it means something totally different. And so as we visit across the states, we have to understand that the words and the terminology, we're all trying to work for preparing great teachers, but we use different words to describe that. And so that, again, that's where I had to learn that Kentucky uses the word intern to mean somebody that's already finished a program. In California, that would be called a preliminary credential. But in Kentucky, it's called an intern credential. And in California, an intern credential means somebody has a bachelor's degree and they're in a program, but there's not enough teachers. So they've been hired as a teacher of record. So that same word can mean so many different things. So as you put together your self-study, keep in mind you're probably going to have 5 people from 5 different states who do things differently than you do. And so you have to make sure that outsiders can understand what you're talking about. One of the things that we tried to do for CAEPCon, so I attended CAEPCon last September as a volunteer, and soon after that, Chris called me and twisted my arm to come on staff, and one of the things that we were trying to do was have joint presentations. So it wasn't just CAEP staff talking to you about regulations and policies, but there was somebody alongside us who's from EPP, or an educational provider. So many of our presentations, you'll notice that for this conference. So there's somebody there who's actually gone through the process recently and has a lot of experience as a site visitor or a dean or as a department chair. There's a couple of other items that I want to have you pay attention to for the workshops. One of them would be around a word I would use as transparency. So as a dean, as a department chair, and even as a site visitor, there was kind of this curtain and behind it sat the Accreditation Council and the board. And I didn't really know who they were, and every once in a while there'd be this statement, the board did this, or after a site visit you'd get this Accreditation Council report, but I didn't really know any of those people, and so I didn't worry about my reports as much because I didn't know anybody that was going to be looking at them. And as I've gotten more and more involved with CAEP, I found we have very high quality people that are trying to make the Accreditation Council and the board be very supportive of your work and to have a high quality accreditation agency. So we have one session with our board members, and if you have interest about governance and you want to find out, Chris and Karen and a couple of other board members, Maria and Al, are going to be there. We also have another session on the Accreditation Council. So after your site visit, the semester later, there's a whole nother group of people that make a decision. They look at the reports from the site visit team, and you can have a chance to ask them questions about how that works. And Kim Walters-Parker from Kentucky is the chair of that, and I think Kim Boyd is also here. Kim, are you here? Kim's back here. She's also on that. And so they're going to be there to answer any kind of questions that you have about the Accreditation Council. I want to introduce you to the 4 accreditation directors that I report to me and then I try to supervise, but they already know what they're doing, so I don't have to do a lot of supervision. Standing way back here by the door in the fuchsia under the exit sign is Jennifer. So Jennifer works with a lot of our research work, also our annual reporting. She's the one that is on task for our report to our accreditor, CHIA. And so if you have any questions about that, like the Standard 4 report that was done, she was involved with that. So be sure to talk with Jennifer. And as long as she's got that bright fuchsia color, you should be able to spot her pretty easy. Back here in the middle is Bonhee. Bonhee, want to raise your hand? Anybody have any questions about program review? Be honest. What is program review? Why do we have to do it? How do we do it? Bonhee is your person to talk about that. And she worked for a SPA, a Specialized Professional Association, and she was brought to CAEP to supervise our process, so you really need to visit with her. You've already met Vince, who works with CAEPCon and our Accreditation Council, and I'm not seeing Tatiana. Is she here? She's probably preparing. So Tatiana is our accreditation director that works with site visits and preparing our site visitors. So she and I are doing sessions almost every hour, so if you go to one of her sessions, you'll meet with her. There's one other person I want you to meet, and is Richard Rice here? Richard's over here by the exit door. How many of you have questions about the annual report? Anybody looked at that yet to see what you have to do? Richard is your guy, either Richard or Jennifer. So that will go into Richard, but that's something that's, as we get feedback from our accreditor, we've made changes in the annual report, and he would be a good person to visit with. So that's all of my remarks for today. I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope you will take the opportunity to ask questions. Find out who's in charge of something, find out the best person to answer your questions, and go to our resource area, and if you can't find anybody, ask, and the people there will try to find that for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. So, again, we're really glad that you're here. The staff did a lot of work to put this together. This team, this conference can't come together with a lot of hard work from a lot of different people. And I'm really excited that we have this to offer you. Again, Gary said we put together a really good program listening to your feedback. There's going to be a lot of information from CAEP staff, but again, with voices from the field, so you'll get a lot of perspective on all the information that you get. There's also some great outside sessions that are here to get some exemplars and some examples from peers that are out there as well, what they're doing for you. And also, remember, collaborate with each other through the app or talk to people. All the people here are going through similar experiences as you, so use that knowledge that's around you right now to make your experience better. I guess you've noticed we've been talking a lot about the conference app. The conference app is new this year, so this conference, so let us know what you think. Everything is there. Hopefully it's easy to access, and you had a chance to play with it a little bit yesterday. A lot of people were asking questions as they registered, so hopefully you're in there. All of your PowerPoints and handouts are available there. You can make your schedule through there, and it'll keep alerts. We sent out an alert this morning. There was a time mix-up, so you got the early alert this morning if you were on the app this morning. But again, you'll get some alerts about some things that are coming up, and again, let us know what you think, and we're always looking for feedback as we can improve things. You can ask questions in sessions with the app, as well as send messages to other attendees through there as well. And also make sure you rate all the sessions. Each session in the session will have a rating session where you can type in questions or type in comments. We're always looking for your feedback as we build these conferences out for the next sessions, so please keep that in mind. And you'll get a full conference survey through the app soon after the conference, or on tomorrow sometime. So take a look at that and make sure you give us all that feedback. And again, so the next conference is at the Woburn Park Marriott, and that's in September 12th through the 15th. So again, all your feedback we'll take and move forward with that. And if you're interested in participating, so you're interested in sharing your expertise and your ideas, we're going to actually open the call for presentations. We're going to open it for both this next fall. We have a few more slots available there, and then for the next spring as well. So think about things you're doing and how you might help your peers and contribute to this conversation with us. We're all here, the staff, the accreditation staff, as Gary mentioned, we're all looking forward to meeting you, so come find us. You can find us both at the CAEP booth, which is on the exhibit level. There's a CAEP cafe up there. There's usually coffee and we'll have little snacks there. Come and shake hands and talk to us. Also, a lot of you had breakfast in the resource room today, where we'll kind of be there to answer questions and talk to you and just meet you. And it's always good to put names with faces. I've emailed with lots of people, but it's great to shake your hand and actually see your face and talk to you. And the rest of the staff feel the same way. So take that opportunity to do that. Another big opportunity to meet us is networking session tonight at 5:30. There'll be some light hors d'oeuvres there. You can go through the exhibitors. When you registered, you got the accreditation passport, so visit the exhibitors and get your passport stamped. They've all donated some really great prizes for the raffle, so that'll happen at the networking session as well, and we'll all be wandering around to see you as well. We also added, really exciting, we got the Washington High School Jazz Band from here in Kansas to perform for us during that session. So they'll be here, and we're making a donation to their organization, so it'll be great to have them here too. So come up and see them as well. Again, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors: Go React, Sky Factor, Watermark, Chalk and Wire, Pearson, and ETS. They have booths on that level where all the sessions are, the ballroom level. So go visit them. And again, we're glad you're here. We're here to help. If you have any questions, find me. I look forward to shaking your hands, talking to a lot of you. I've seen you already, but enjoy the conference. Give us lots of feedback, and have a great time. Thanks for coming. 10:15 is the first session, so have some more coffee, get started, and we will see you in sessions. So thanks.